Good evening, I'm John Carter. Welcome to Poland Daily. On Friday, Polish Prime Minister Mateusz Morawiecki invited the leaders of all government groups for a consultation concerning the passing of a new law. The intention is to prevent a tragedy like the one from January the 13th in Gdansk from happening again. Aleksandra Jarzycka, reporting from the Sejm, has more.
Two bills have been proposed, one by the Ministry of Health and another by the Ministry of Justice. The opinion of Michał Dworczyk is that these kinds of changes should be made by consensus involving the whole political class, and that this is a first step towards a better political life in Poland. But he doesn't give us more details. Katarzyna Lubnauer of the Modern Party or Stanisław Tyszka, Deputy Marshal of the Lower Chamber of Parliament, hope this project isn't just about changing the PM's image. They also expect design briefs on this project. The Polish People's Party says it's open to discussions, but expects this meeting subject to include the change of CEO of the public television, Jacek Kurski, and the introduction of a debate in Parliament regarding the circumstances of the murder of Paweł Adamowicz.
On the one hand, the previous 2 weeks were a time of reflection, but on the other, it was a time of analysis. So what actions should we take to prevent this tragedy ever happening again? The Ministry of Health and the Ministry of Justice are working on a new legislation.
W Ministerstwie Zdrowia I w Ministerstwie Sprawiedliwości.
Na razie to ma charakter bardziej.
Now, the actions don't have the constructive and legislative character. We want essential work. If we want to talk about something or consult, we talk specifically about things and not about our good intentions.
A nie o dobrych lub złych intencjach.
Nie bardzo podoba mi się sposób.
I don't like when law is created after something happens, even if it is a huge tragedy. We have procedures which say how to make law. If the project of the law is at a government level, it is not on the list of the councils of ministers, so it should be widely consulted with citizens and experts.
Z obywatelami I z ekspertami, którzy się na tym znają.
Otwartość na spotkanie jest, bo my jesteśmy ludźmi dialogu.
We are open because we are men of dialogue and we want to introduce a dialogue. If we get an invitation like that, we will accept it with kindness. But if we want to see honest intentions, we want to know if there's going to be a debate concerning the investigation on the mayor of Warsaw, Paweł Adamowicz's death in government. We should give the government a chance to speak.
As the Deputy Marshal Tyszka stated, he got the assurance from the PM's office that the project in question will be presented during the meeting. Only subsequently will the management of the Kukiz 15 movement take the decision to take part in those discussions. The other political parties made similar statements. However, we don't know what the reaction of Civic Platform will be. Members of this political party refused to comment on the matter today.
The fatal tragedy in Gdansk remains at the forefront of the Polish media's attention. One of the key issues discussed today was the lack of immediate action by security personnel at the moment of the attack on Paweł Adamowicz. New information regarding the company contracted to provide security at the event in Gdansk has been revealed by Gazeta Polska Weekly.
Dariusz S., the head of the private security company at the event, was charged with 2 counts of false testimony and another count of perverting the course of justice. The detained security chief tried to persuade his employees to give false testimonies to align with his version of events. The suspect did not confess and submitted explanations that the investigators will now verify. The offenses are punishable with up to 8 years in prison.
Information about the fact that the attacker had a media badge was given to us by Dariusz S., head of the security company. Our findings prove that this is not true. The evidence collected, including analysis of monitoring, biological tests of the badge we received, and witness testimonies indicate that the suspect did not have this badge on the stage. The man gave false testimony, trying to hide his negligence while securing the event.
The Minister of Interior and Administration, Joachim Brudziński, has decided to start the procedure of cancelling the license of the Typhoon Security Agency. Gazeta Polska revealed that the security company, operating in Gdańsk for years, received a license for the provision of security services for half a century, and that the permit was signed by the leader of the opposition, Grzegorz Schetyna, who was the Minister of Interior and Administration at the time.
Agencja Tajfun nie była agencją nieznaną w Gdańsku.
The Typhoon Agency was not unknown in Gdańsk. It has been operating for 11 years, was serving important parties and got an operating license for 50 years. The permit was issued back then by Mr. Schetyna. I was puzzled by the silence of almost all media outlets on the issue of the security company. I did some research and the result is astonishing. The media presented the chorus of praise for them. The key people of the agency were very active in the media, appearing as experts in many TV programs. This was visible on the internet. After Dariusz S. was arrested, all those materials were deleted. One thing is obvious, the security agency was well known in Gdańsk and the company was hired multiple times previously.
Stefan W., the murderer of Paweł Adamowicz, was captured on stage by one of stage employees. The Typhoon Agency employees entered the action nearly half a minute after the attack had occurred.
The Congress of Railway Development was held in Warsaw today. Polish Prime Minister Mateusz Morawiecki emphasised that one of the goals of his government is to combat the lack of public transport connections for Poles living in smaller districts.
200 linii kolejowych.
We can say that we reproduced 200 kilometers of railway lines. These are important connections between towns of small provinces, which were liquidated 20 and 30 years ago. For us, this is a fight with communication exclusion. Inhabitants of big cities like Warsaw, Poznań, Krakow, Wrocław, Łódź, or the Tri-City have much easier communication, but we have to think about the whole of Poland.
O wiele większą łatwość w połączeniach komunikacyjnych, ale musimy myśleć o całej Polsce.
Panama Archbishop Jose Domingo Ulloa opened the Roman Catholic Church's World Youth Day with a mass in Panama City on January the 22nd. In his homily, the Archbishop told a crowd of young worshippers that he hoped that the event would act as a balm for the difficult situation that Central American youth face.
Gracias. Thank you, Pope Francis, for trusting us and giving us the opportunity to hold a World Youth Day from existential peripheries and geographies. We hope it will be a balm for the difficult situation. A lot of Central America's youth are going through life without hope, especially the indigenous youth and those of African descent. The youth has to migrate due to almost no response from the governments of their countries, who force them to chase their dreams in other places, exposing them to drug trafficking, human trafficking, crime.
I think he's just an amazing guy. I think this world really needed someone to give us a great example as he has been doing this.
We tell the Pope that we are waiting for him with a lot of affection and love, and for him to keep believing in the youth of the world.
Pope Francis left Rome's Fiumicino airport today at 9:35 a.m. to celebrate World Youth Day in Panama. Arrival at Panama Tocumen International Airport is scheduled for 10:30 p.m. Polish time. At the airport, Bishop Gino Reali, the ordinary of the Diocese of Porto Santa Rufina, where the airport is located, said goodbye to the Pope. According to the schedule, Pope Francis will be greeted at the airport by the President of Panama, Juan Carlos Varela Rodriguez, and his wife. The Holy Father will then go to the Apostolic Nunciature, where he will stay for the next few days. Tomorrow, the Pope will meet with the diplomatic corps and clergy. At 5:30 p.m, the official welcome and opening ceremony of the World Youth Day, with the participation of the Holy Father, is planned. The 15th World Youth Day will last until Sunday. More than 150,000 people will take part in the event.
Thank you very much for joining me here this evening at Poland Daily. I'm John Carter. Stay tuned after the break for Poland Daily Weather, and then join us for Poland Daily Business, as followed by the culture, history and the travel.
I'm Aleksandra Zarzycka and welcome to Poland Daily Weather. Let's take a look at the forecast for tonight. Snow will appear across Lublin and Rzeszów. Temperatures will be significantly lower than they have been in recent night. A maximum -4 degrees in Szczecin and a minimum -10 degrees in Białystok. And now over to tomorrow. During the day, we may expect snowfall in the southeast and in central Poland. However, there will be moments with some sun. More sunlight will appear along the Baltic coast. Temperature will range from -7 degrees in Białystok to -3 degrees along the Baltic coast and in the south. In central Poland, temperatures hovering around -5, -4 degrees. Let's see the forecast for the following 3 days. Overcast skies on Friday in the south, eastern and central Poland, with temperatures range from -8 to -2 degrees. Another snowy day on Saturday, the temperatures ranging from -7 to -3 in the coast. And on Sunday, the pressure will drop. Snow with rain is expected in the east and in central Poland. More sun moments will appear on the west. Goodbye.
Poland Daily Business Edition. Tonight our guest is Łukasz Bugaj of Bosesa Brokerage. Sir, welcome to the show.
Good evening.
We'll definitely talk about Brexit because what else? The British Parliament rejected the Brexit deal with the European Union and now we are in limbo and nobody knows what will happen next. Let us look at the Brexit from the Polish perspective and say how much we can lose when Britain will leave the European Union.
We can lose actually a lot. We can lose both politically and economically. Politically, because Great Britain was the part of, let's say, conservative, more free market part of Europe, and very important part of that campus, let's say, along with probably also Poland, and losing Great Britain will be a setback for this kind of idea, let's say, in European Union.
For those who don't know, we have to say that the European Union is divided roughly around more state-controlled from Brussels or less state-controlled and free market approach. And definitely with Great Britain leaving the United Europe, the tilt is going to be towards the centralized Brussels
probably
governed country.
But also we have to remember that the most important member of European Union, Germany, is kind of unknown and is also tilting between these two sides. But this is the political spectrum. This is one side of the coin. The another side, and very important, especially in the short term or in the medium term, the political view is very important in the long term and the survival and the future shape of the European Union, while the medium term and short term especially is very important economically. And looking at this landscape, we can also say that Great Britain is important for Polish economy, both directly and indirectly. Directly because Great Britain is it was the second biggest trading partner of Poland. It became the third.
What do we sell to Britain?
We sell a lot of furniture. But goods is just one side. The another side is services, and we do a lot of services in Great Britain, especially transportation. We have Polish companies are the dominant, let's say, player in the European Union and transportation industry.
In practice, is that the logistics within the United Kingdom, I mean, in England, between the stores of Tesco or whatever, is being provided by Polish companies. The Polish drivers, Polish trucks on Polish plates are riding from point A to point B, carrying goods.
Also, but mainly the routes are between countries of the European Union, not within the countries, but it is also part of the transportation and logistics that Polish drivers and Polish companies do. So this is very big industry, and we are the main player in European Union and also in Great Britain. Directly, Great Britain is important. As I said, this is right now the third biggest trading partner. But this is the one side. The other side is that when you look at the whole European Union, the European Union has a trading advantage versus Great Britain, meaning that exports are greater to Great Britain than imports. And this is mainly because of the German economy. German economy is the biggest in European Union and Europe, and it is also a very important trading partner between Great Britain and continental Europe. And Polish economy is directly linked to the German economy. So, as I said at the beginning, it is very important for Polish economy both directly because of our links, direct links between Great Britain and Poland, and indirectly through Germany.
Could you say now, just once again flipping the coin, that United Kingdom will benefit from withdrawing from European Union?
Is it a question? Will it benefit?
Yes.
It is. We don't know. We don't know right now. 2 years ago, some people said that it is possible. It is very possible to benefit from withdrawing from the European Union, but the reason was that Great Britain could become like a Singapore economy for European part of the equation in global part of economy. So it will be liberal, very free market economy and free trading partner for most countries, for European countries, and also other economic jurisdiction, especially Americas, both North and South, and also Asia. So looking through this, let's say, glasses, it is possible that Great Britain could have great advantage over other countries like Singapore had. But looking from today's perspective, I think that it is this view is not relevant right now because what we see, especially in British politics, is that the movement is not more in the free market, more liberal economy, but toward economy that is not that free market. So looking from this point of view, we can say that probably Brexit, especially in the medium term, and we don't know the shape of the Brexit in the short term, if it will be the hard Brexit, the hard way, so withdrawing from the European Union without any previous agreement, then it will be devastating for the both British economy but also Irish economy, because as I said, Poland is linked very much to the German economy, and British economy is linked to the Irish economy. So in the very short term, I would say that the Irish are they have the most to lose in the very short term in case of hard Brexit. Poland and Polish economy is not that far away, unfortunately.
Right. But right now it looks like there will be another several months of negotiations, and the Britons have to decide what to do because they don't know.
Yes, they don't know. What we know right now is that today Premier Theresa May will have confidence vote in Parliament. Probably she will survive this confidence vote, but the clock is ticking, let's say, and the deadline is the end of March. the 29th of March, that the Brexit should happen under the current, let's say, agreements, and probably this Article 50 that says that the deadline is the end of March will be extended into summer probably, and further negotiations probably not.
Maybe they will wait for the. I mean, it could be a smart move for Britons to wait till the European election and talk to the new Commission and new European Parliament after the mood will be changed.
It is a problem. Yes, we can also look at from this perspective, but it will be a problem for. Let's say for the elections, because you have a country that is leaving the European Union, but you would have to perform the elections in Great Britain.
Right.
But what's the reason if
we're leaving? Yeah,
yes.
Okay, so we will see. The situation is really demanding, so to speak. And,
yes, very demanding, and it is chaos, let's say, right now in Britain. And the Brexiters thought that there would be not chaos, but more free market and regular leaving the European Union. But what we see right now is not benefiting, especially for Great Britain, but also for the European Union.
Right. Łukasz Bugaj, financial analyst of Bosiesa Brokerage, was our guest, and we are still looking at the situation in Britain, in Poland, and waiting what will happen.
I'm Alexandra Zarzycka and welcome back to Poland Daily Weather. Let's take a look at the forecast for tomorrow. During the day, we may expect snowfall in the southeast and central Poland. However, there will be moments with some sun. More sunlight will appear along the Baltic coast. Temperatures will range from -7 degrees in Białystok to -3 degrees along the Baltic coast and in the south. In central Poland, temperatures hovering around -5, -4 degrees. Let's see tomorrow's forecast for our continent. Rainy and snowy weather in northern Europe, -6 degrees in Oslo and -1 in Helsinki. Colder temperatures in northern Eastern Europe with -13 degrees in Moscow and -7 in Kiev. Higher temperatures, 13 degrees, will appear in Lisbon and 15 in Athens. Thank you for watching and goodbye.
Poland underwent dramatic changes between the First and Second World Wars. Having regained its independence in 1918, the newly re-established country set about rediscovering its previous cultural heritage and forming a new popular culture. Released from the shackles of suppression by their three partitioners, Poland became transformed.
Welcome to Poland Daily Culture. In today's episode, we're here at the Warsaw Uprising Museum. It's not widely known that Polish music, literature, cinema, and nightlife scene were thriving between the First and Second World War. So join us as we take you on a journey through that period with the people who knew it best. I'm here with Mr. Artur Gorniejewski. Mr. Gorniejewski, welcome to Poland Daily Culture.
Thank you very much for your invitation. It will be a pleasure of mine to answer your questions connected with Polish history.
So, on today's episode, we're going to discuss a little something about Polish cinema. So, as I understand it, the interwar period for Polish cinema was sometimes described as a golden age. Why was it that it was thought of so fondly?
So to understand the cinema of these days, of the period in between World War I and World War II, let's try to imagine first that we are having no sound or colors right at the beginning, so only black and white movies with no sound. So have you ever watched such?
I think I've seen Metropolis. This is like a sort of film from that period. Yeah, it's really difficult to engage in comparison to a modern movie. Yeah.
Of course. So we are having differences in European on words cinema industry of that period of time. So for instance, German cinema industry would be concentrated on thrilling horror movies that were highly interesting in this period of time. But for instance, Swedish movie industry would be about Daenerys, Vikings mythology or panoramic beautiful sceneries. Then French industry would be about impressionist, a movie of a thought, of an idea that would bring many reflections, that would make you think. On the other hand, the Russian, Soviet movie industry would be about propaganda and politics. US would be about branch or about particular person, about a movie star, for instance. This would make things go. So Western movies and later on musical movies, very important people like Charlie Chaplin of these years, or how about Pola Negri, Polish lady, who had a very big impact on world's movie industry. Then in Poland, in that period of time, we can tell that we divide this industry into two periods of time. Very important date, 1929, Wall Street crashes. So right after World War I, right after the big war, when everyone's relaxed, when everyone's positive about the future, when everyone's an optimist simply, then it changes. 1929, huge financial problems all over planet Earth. And this is when everything changes on every single branch of life and also movie industry. So before that period of time, Polish movie industry was about our great history. Hey, you just managed to get back your independence. You just won the Bolshevik War, so let's make it in 1921, The Miracle at Vistula River movie. Then let's make another movie, The Tomb of Unknown Soldier. Such tombs, such graves, by the way, were appearing on planet Earth after the big war. London, Berlin, Warsaw. The Tomb of Unknown Soldier in Warsaw appeared in 1925. And in 1927, we are having the movie The Tomb of Unknown Soldier in Polish movies. And that's also a year where sound appears in the movies, 1927. Then in 1930s, color appears in the movies, and Polish movie industry starts to be cutting edge. Something new appears, and something so familiar nowadays, movies based on everyday life. And such movies adopted in Polish movie industry, like The Book in 1937, the movie that was 100% made in Yiddish language, used by Polish Jews. And then we are having another movie, Ladies from Nowolipki Street, which is only about everyday life, provided by Józef Leitas. That gentleman emigrated to the US, and he was involved in many TV shows in Hollywood after World War II. Warner Bros. For guys with Polish descendants. Polish people involved in important productions here in Poland and then abroad in the US, a lot of them Jewish. And this is why we can say that Polish movie industry had a very big impact on world's movie industry of that period of time.
The years prior to the First World War and the interwar period are deemed by many film experts as a golden era for Polish cinema. During the First World War, movie luminaries such as Pola Negri and creator of Poland's first animation film, Felix Kuczkowski, made their marks on the scene. However, the economic depression of the 1920s nearly wiped out the movie industry altogether. The scene was kept alive with imports and low-budget domestic productions, but cinema was truly reinvigorated in the 30s, starting with the release of Everyone Can Fall in Love, Poland's first film with sound, in 1933. The production of comedies, melodramas, historical avant-garde and Yiddish films throughout the decade drove the industry on to greater strength. The glory years were sadly short-lived, with the German occupation in 1939 leading to a banning of films made in Poland and the death of many filmmakers. The nail in the coffin arrived during the Warsaw Uprising in 1944, when all cinemas and copies of films were destroyed.
And so a lot of the Polish film industry, then, you're suggesting, was really centered on this sort of feeling of kind of patriotism and a sense of belonging once again. Would you say that was the kind of embodiment? This is what characterized Polish cinema during this time?
Right after World War I, right after the big war, yes. This is what was most important for us. And then more ideas prevailing in this part of the world and very interesting, simply, were appearing right in here.
And why did you mentioned that Poland was kind of on the cutting edge of cinema. How was it that it got to that stage where it could be on the cutting edge? You know, we think of today of, you know, certain countries might be on the cutting edge of certain forms of culture. That's a kind of a lot to do with finance, etc. How was it that Poland came to be on the cutting edge of Polish cinema?
That was a very good moment for Poland in general. So as far as 64% of Poland was annexed by Russia, and then the rest by Prussia and the Austrian Empire, then we are having Russia or Soviet Union that doesn't have a lot of economical connections with the US. As far as the Wall Street crashes in the mentioned country, then Poland is the second in pecking order country that's not affected by economical crisis. And that's why Poland could stay pretty much independent when it comes to economy. Well, our neighbors, Germany, just started to suffer very big problems. Instantly, right after 1929, 500,000 of people became homeless, 3 million of people became unemployed, and we are not having such situation happening in Poland, so that Polish culture and Polish economy stays quite independent.
And you mentioned earlier the actress, Pola Negri. Maybe there'll be some viewers who aren't completely familiar with what made her such an outstanding success. Could you tell us a little something about her?
A Polish lady, Apolonia Chałubiec, born in Poland, that was not Poland at this period of time. She emigrated to the US. She became a very important star in black and white and non-sound movies. She's claimed among Charlie Chaplin to be one of most important figures of that period of time. And once again, when it comes to US movie industry, it was about a person who will perform in a particular movie. So if she was a figure and if she was so beautiful and perfectly behaving person in these movies, then this is what made her achieving such a great success. And this is how she enabled Polish movie industry to be more considered by international point of view. If US movie industry is about actors or actresses, and if they have like the top one, then their ideas might be taken under consideration by us.
And what was it that made her specifically so well thought of? What was her qualities that made her so popular?
So still, in this period of time, it was about, well, universal features. I think till nowadays, what makes an actress or an actor be so popular? She was beautiful. She was behaving in an amazing way. When she was in front of the camera and behind it, she was considered to be a sophisticated and refined lady who was performing in such an amazing way that enabled her becoming so famous, and that's good for us as well.
Mr. Artur Gorniewski, thank you very much for joining us here at Poland Daily Culture.
It was a pleasure.
Thank you very much for joining us here at Poland Daily Culture at the Warsaw Uprising Museum. Join us again tomorrow as we take another fascinating journey through Polish culture.
Hello, welcome to Poland Daily History. I'm your host, Phil Goss. We're at the Praga Museum today in the Praga district of Warsaw. Praga is separated from the main part of Warsaw by the Vistula River, Praga being on the east bank. It's an older part of the city which has been destroyed a number of times over the centuries, although it did escape destruction in the 20th century, meaning we have lots of nice 19th century architecture to enjoy while we walk around the area. It's also the source of a number of different and interesting people, as well as a number of different things as investment points in Warsaw are concerned from the 1930s, 1920s, as well as in the communist times, as well as in the post-communist times. We'll talk to a couple of people here at the Praga Museum who can shed much more light on the subject, and we'll learn quite a bit along the way. For Poland Daily, I'm Phil Goss at the Praga Museum with our guest Franciszek Płóciennik, docent or education specialist. Franciszek, after the war, we have Soviet troops and secret police here in Praga, and then we have 30, 40 years of communism, or more, 45 years of communism. How did that period of time change Praga? How did it affect the people here, the way Praga looks, the way you live here, the way you survive in Praga?
Definitely it influenced the way Praga looks right now, basically. Just as we said before, Warsaw has been demolished during World War II and then being rebuilt by the communists in a new way. Praga has not been demolished, so actually 90% of houses in Praga survived the war. It was mostly the tenement houses built in 20s and 30s and earlier. Just as I said before, Praga has not been destroyed and demolished during World War II, unlike Warsaw. So actually the communist governors didn't care for Praga too much because they had a lot of trouble rebuilding Warsaw in a new way. We discovered some of the communist huge investments here, but mostly huge blocks of flats here, including the longest block of flats in Poland. It's 500 meters long, but that's it, actually. So Praga has been almost abandoned by the communists for almost 50 years. So it became more and more destroyed, abandoned. So the social problems started to get bigger and bigger, right? Actually, so right now we are revitalizing Praga, starting to change this matter. But actually, because Praga consists mostly of old tenement houses that used to be beautiful, no one decided to care for them for many, many years. New people moved in, mostly poor people were just sent in here. So actually there was no way to care for these buildings. The communists, due to ideological reasons, get rid of the ornaments and decorations on the facades of the buildings. And if they renovated them, they tried to make them all look gray and the same, right? So try to imagine this stereotypical communist gray everyday life and the most famous black market in Warsaw. As you may know, there was a lot of products that were hard to reach in communist times. So if you were not wealthy enough to go to any of the store in Warsaw, you could always go to the black market in
Where
Praga.
was this?
right where we are, right around the building.
At this old Targowisko place, yeah?
Yes. The name was Bazar Różyckiego, and you can hear the name Bazar, the Polish word Bazar, resembles the French word Bazar. That means just the marketplace or the market.
Because I thought for a moment you might have been referring to Stadion Dziesięciolecia.
Oh, not
but
yet.
That comes not yet. Okay,
that
so
comes
that comes
later.
later, yes. That's perhaps the most famous, but not for today. So after the war, we find that it's not been destroyed by the war, but it's being neglected.
That's true.
And over the years, it becomes more and more depressed, more and more falling apart, quite literally falling apart.
Communists decided to invest, to build, right, like 3 huge industrial sites, including car factory in Praga. So that demanded lots of more blocks of flats in the suburbs. That's why Praga was actually neglected for many years.
So in Praga, we have some industrial development, but not really taking any care for the buildings.
No.
People living here, but really an emphasis on new buildings for the suburbs beyond the industry that came in just north of Praga or elsewhere. How did that affect the type of people and the way people were in this part of the city? Because Praga did have not a good reputation at this time.
Still hasn't. Still, the bad reputation of Prague and people living there is still alive. Actually, right now, it's become the tourist attraction, actually, as the tourist product here. But basically, the stereotype of people living in Praga was some street smarts who try to purchase some goods on the black market, try to steal something from the newcomers, some criminals, some different, weird, strange kinds of people. So all sorts of trouble you could encounter here if you come here and you're a newcomer, right?
Okay. Thank you very much, Franciszek. For Poland Daily, I'm Phil Goss. This has been our guest, Franciszek Płócennik from the Praga Museum.
The German army razed Warsaw to the ground after the Warsaw Uprising, but Praga was in the hands of the Soviet army and escaped the destruction. The beautiful tenement buildings survived but were neglected for years and are currently in desperate need of revitalization. Maria Czaplicka was one of the most successful residents of Praga and grew up in a beautiful tenement building in the Stara Praga district. She was one of the first female cultural anthropologists and went on to receive a fellowship at Oxford University.
For Poland Daily History, I'm Phil Goss. Today at Praga Museum with Senior Curator Jolanta Wiśniewska. Ms. Wiśniewska, I understand that there was a world-famous anthropologist from Praga who went on to study in Siberia and indeed got a doctorate from Oxford University. Who was this person and what did she do?
Tak, mówimy o Marii Antoninie Czaplickiej.
We are referring to Maria Antonina Czaplicka. She was an anthropologist and one of the first women to receive a doctorate at Oxford University. A woman who was born locally, actually very close to where we are right now, on Brzeska Street. She lived here. She spent her whole childhood here. She was the daughter of a railway official in Praga. This is an example how beginning your life in Praga, you can end up not only in Great Britain, but also in Siberia, and for example, travel 3,000 kilometers on the back of a camel.
Między innymi używając jako transportu wielbłądów. Maria
Czaplicka, as a very promising geographer with great potential, obtained a scholarship in 1910, thanks to which she could travel to England for further study. These were times when women being at universities wasn't common. Let's remember that in Great Britain, women only obtained the right to vote in 1918, while Maria Czaplicka was already a very successful student in Oxford University in 1910 and 1911. She did her doctorate. She was entrusted with studying Siberian shamanism.
Zostało jej powierzone opracowanie materiałów stanu badań dotyczącego stanu badań nad szamanizmem syberyjskim.
She conducted this research with great success and was hired by the university as a lecturer, one of the first women or even the first woman to lecture at Oxford. She was also one of the first women in the world to obtain a doctorate. Her career picked up pace. In 1914, Czaplicka organized and took part in an expedition to Siberia in the region of the Yenisei River.
Ta jej wyprawa kobiety, która...
She spent the whole year in Siberia, which she later wrote a book about. This was an expedition of a woman who not only traveled, but conducted empirical anthropological research. Her friend from university and a person who would become very famous in this area of expertise was Bronisław Malinowski. He was a friend of hers who traveled to the Trobriand Islands at the same time as she went to Siberia. Unfortunately, upon returning from Siberia, she wasn't so lucky. These were difficult times for migrant women who wanted to have a career at university, and unfortunately, Maria Czaplicka wasn't able to deal with the pressure. Her premature death by suicide in 1921 ended her career. But this is a figure who ought to be found in every anthropological textbook.
That's quite a sad story to hear, that she ended her life at such a young age. Is her book still available in print in Poland?
Ukazała się po angielsku książka o szamanizmie syberyjskim.
Her book on Siberian shamanism was published in English, while her popular book about her Siberian expedition, My Year in Siberia, as far as I know, hasn't to this date been translated into the Polish language.
Która z tego co wiem nie została do tej pory przetłumaczona na język polski. Natomiast jej notatki...
Her notes and research results from Siberia were handed to her companion from the expedition, Henry Hall, and were not developed in full, so she was only really discovered by anthropologists quite recently, at the end of the 20th century.
Tak naprawdę dopiero pod koniec wieku XX ponownie.
Thank you very much. For Poland Daily History, at the Praga Museum with Senior Curator Jolanta Wiśniewska. As we've seen, Praga has been the source of quite a bit of rich history for Warsaw, as well as a number of influential Warsavians who came from here. Although it is a tight-knit community, gentrification in the past years is changing the face of Praga. Let's hope, though, that it doesn't change the nature of the community. For Poland Daily History, I'm your host, Phil Goss.
Hi, everybody. Poland Daily, we are back. Poland Daily Travel, the show we do for you. Why? Because we love you. That's why we're here with Poland Daily Travel. More exciting stuff. Boy, we had Wojtek, our guide. He's been taking us all around Warsaw, showing us special secret places. We've looked at walls. We've looked at castle wall. We looked at a lot of walls, actually. And it's been fascinating all day as we've been reshooting Dr. Zhivago. The weather's perfect for it. At any rate, here we are in beautiful downtown Warsaw at the lovely Coco and Roy gastronomic spot of the year. And we're going to be doing some more talking about behind the scenes Warsaw, because that is what Wojtek does. You do behind the scenes Warsaw, which is fascinating, isn't it? What is behind the scenes Warsaw all about?
Well, it's about showing a little bit more than just the very front of Warsaw. It's going a little bit into those backyards. It's getting this second level of knowledge transferred to you. Just not only the very basic facts, but a little bit of more understanding of the processes that are going on here. It's about history, but it's also about contemporary Warsaw, to feel the town a little bit more.
Mm-hmm.
That's what it is about.
So you get under the skin of the city, so to speak.
Yeah.
We say that? Is
That's
that
what
fair?
we do.
Yeah.
You can say that.
Yeah.
And we always do it in a slightly different way. We look around while driving through the city. We try to be on time. We try to come by, for instance, well, we try to take a second look at places. Yes? And if something is happening in the town, yes, we will explain it to you, because we try to know what happens around here. But of course, always we will get some surprises. Yes? Very often we tap into movie scenes, for instance, and then we start a conversation with the crews, and they will tell us about movies that will come up in a year or two. And that's quite interesting, because it happens that we do watch these movies later.
Well, they shoot a lot of movies.
They do. 2 days ago, I was I would just
foreign and
yeah, Polish movies. 2 days ago, I tapped into a movie scene. You know.
Yeah.
I just tapped into it.
What happened?
Well, nothing. They just stopped me in a certain moment. But you know, we've been into a movie scene that would tell us about 1938 Warsaw. The year 1938.
Oh, right.
And
so that's particularly of interest to you, because you're always looking at that past
period.
And how it's changed. Say the pre-war period has changed to today, where the seams are, where they connect.
Yeah, some locations are exactly the same, you know. And we just stepped into such a location 2 days ago with guests.
Where was it?
Oh, it was close to the Parliament, at nearby a very nice museum of nature. And not far away from the Sheraton Hotel, if you know Warsaw.
Oh yeah, the natural
museum with the big stones that are exhibited there. So around those big stones, they did the location.
Yeah.
And that was pretty much surprising. But we also tapped into such places in the Praga district, on the opposite, on the eastern side of the Vistula River, and that happens even more often over there than on this side. Yes. They're just very known locations.
But the interesting thing, don't you think, the interesting thing is how much of Warsaw has changed, and why has it changed? Because very little of it existed after the Second World War. A lot of people, you may not know that if you don't know the history of Warsaw a little bit, that the city was completely rebuilt over several decades, wasn't it?
Yes.
Until today.
The word completely is not exactly the right word, because you had still like 15% of buildings that were quite okay.
That's not a lot, though.
That's not a lot, isn't it?
Comparing to other cities in Europe, it's really not a lot.
It's really not a lot, that's true. So those guys who have come to the town, they could do a lot of new stuff in here. They've really proceeded in a speed that was even commented by Germans as Warsaw Tempo, the speed like in Warsaw. And it was so much
Really?
dust.
That was a German saying?
There was a German saying
tempo
for that,
of Warsaw, because it was recreated so fast.
So fast, yes. And it was
ironic
very impressive.
coming from the Germans, because they had so much, we
Damaged,
owe them so much for the rebuilding of Warsaw, don't we?
But in this case,
without them, how could it have happened?
Without them, the city would develop like any other city, and it will be different. It will be more dense, probably. It will be probably less. Some houses will be less perfect. Some houses will remain old-fashioned for a longer time. That is pretty likely. Some other areas will develop, and probably the whole progress would be, in general, very good. Probably the country would get rich. Probably the country would get richer faster. But it still will remain more old-fashioned. You know, because such a big destruction offers a chance to architects to start something from the scratch, literally from the scratch, yes?
Yeah. Well, even if it's only, I mean, if it's 85% of the city, it's a lot. And then think how much the city has grown since that time.
So alone, you know, the reconstruction committee was consisting of 2,000 people. It was an office that employed 2,000 staff.
How many people were in the reconstruction?
2,000 staff in the reconstruction bureau.
Wow.
That's how we call it. And we have their headquarters visible in Warsaw until today, not far away from here, where we are. So they have left.
Where is that? Which street?
Oh, that's the street. I just drive those streets. It's nearby the Zbawiciela Square, the Salvator Square. Yes, not far away from there. And then the city is still under progress. It is not yet finished. The city got built in a very wide area, and it remained empty in very many locations. So by now, the city gets denser and denser. building new homes in places in which you once had orchards or fields or just allotments. Yes, that's a nice English word for the gardens.
Yeah,
isn't it?
is that correct?
Is that correct? How British is that?
I throw over to Nicholas Richardson, our expert on allotments and other things.
Yes, well, yeah, no, allotments is a good word, if they are allotments.
Yeah.
Which arose actually also out of wartime in England, where it was thought that everybody who lived in a town should have a bit of greenery they could go to and call their own, have a bit of relaxation, grow some fruit, vegetables. So allotments became very popular.
And that started here as a part of the social changes long time before World War I, so people could walk towards them. They were on the edge of the town, but now they get lost or filled up with perfectly modern homes, which is a little bit a problem, but you know, we just badly need a lot of new housing, and we just need flats, yes? So we might find a new balance. So Warsaw will become a little bit less green than it is in summer or in spring, just because.
Well, right now it's snowing.
Right now it's not green at all. Yes, right now it's so white and so.
It was pretty
white and grey.
What do you say, Siberian?
It
today.
was not. Please.
It wasn't that cold.
It was just -5 or so. Celsius.
Okay.
The
Excuse
snow
me.
makes it look Siberian.
I thought it was a little bit cold, but then again, I'm not a Canadian like some of us.
No, you're not.
You're Canadian.
I am.
Yeah. You're a British
And you're
man. You
not.
don't know about cold weather.
We don't have very
You have to
cold
go stand on top of Snowdon and go, what?
Yeah, exactly.
You know,
no, we don't have cold weather, not really cold
You don't
weather.
really.
need to have some
Scotland in the north, maybe.
Yes,
Yeah, the Orkneys or some
they-
crazy.
they have it.
Why do they call them the Orkneys?
No idea.
No one knows.
I think it's probably Norwegian.
I think it's one of those deep circuits behind the scenes
in
Britain. But let's go back to behind the scenes.
Let's go back.
Oh,
How benefit you from coming here in winter? Just listen to that
I know,
story.
okay. Look, but I want people to know that it's fun to visit here in winter. There's still a lot of tourists nowadays.
Listen.
And there's a lot of other things you can do in the winter, like stay at home under the covers and watch a lot of movies and order out from all the great restaurants that will deliver to your house.
True thing.
Experience
Or watch the
first
fire
in
inside your
Warsaw.
home.
Yesterday,
Watch
you know?
the fire. Yeah.
Yesterday, that's an important story, you know. Yesterday, I was the part of somebody experiencing a thing first time. So, you know, I've been away with a 20-year-old girl that has seen snow for the first time in her life. Yes?
Now, what were you doing with this 20-year-old girl?
We are looking at the most marvelous park
Where
in
was she
Warsaw,
from?
at the Royal Park, the Royal Łazienki Park.
Oh, you were on the doing a tour.
Yeah, I was giving a tour. I was with their parents and with, you know, with other people.
And she'd never seen snow.
She had never
Where
seen
was she
snow
from?
in the age of 20-some.
Where was she from?
She was from Australia. From
Oh, well, they don't have a
Adelaide,
lot
I
of snow.
suppose.
Although they do have the snowy
And then-
mountains.
Well, they do have
And
snow
then-
in Australia.
I heard
somewhere.
about the snowy mountains, I have.
Yeah.
And then she built a snowman.
That was not a good Australian accent. Yeah.
And imagine, what type of a snowman? How many balls has a snowman normally?
What?
Yeah, you know, parts.
Yeah, I don't know.
Just think of that. You never thought of that, isn't it? It's always free.
Yeah.
And she made
Let's say,
one.
how many balls does a snowman have?
Yeah,
Three,
well,
apparently.
It's a
Free,
good question for me.
Every European says free, or
Yeah.
Canadian.
Is it 3?
But she did 4.
Yeah.
You know?
It's not. It's not.
Why not? Why not?
Yeah.
It was her first ever snowman.
Did she watch films?
So it's not
In
2
Warsaw, yeah.
anyway. Yeah.
That was instinctively 4 balls. Yes.
Yeah,
So you see,
can we,
what things
can we
you
move the subject?
We can cut it out later. We can
No,
cut it
no,
out
it's
later.
okay. It's okay. Now, it's fine. It's fine. This
The moment
show,
is good,
this is a family show. But look, you need at least. Okay, you got to have a base, a middle, and maybe even a small, a neck. I call it the neck ball, but I'm odd. You know,
Well,
I'm different. Anyway, you know what I wanted to ask was, since we're talking about behind the scenes, and you've been kind enough to take us around. Show it. By the way, if I wanted to take your tour, because you didn't charge us, I forgot. How much is it? So the folks know. To go with you, I mean, you can go with this guy all around Warsaw. He's great, as you can see from our continuing segments of the show. But how much does it actually cost?
The most standard tour is about 170 zlotys for 4
Okay.
hours, including a small food stop with some local pyzy, some local dumplings, yes, and
pierogi
a small beer,
things,
pierogis,
yeah.
And a small beer, or a coffee, or a tea, or something like that. You know, what fits into the budget, and you know, it's not all too fancy. We stop in a normal, nice restaurant that offers good food, and we can make it also perfectly private for the 4 hours, and then it's about 700 zlotys for a whole bus.
How many people is that?
How many people you wish? And up
How many
to
do you
eight.
think you
Up
can
to
do?
eight.
Up to eight.
Up to eight
but
people.
Not 100. That was my point. So it's like 8 people for how many? 100
for like
zlotys a person.
About 4 hours for about 100 zloty a person. A little bit less. You have to divide it up.
Right.
It's
Everybody
like
gets
700.
lunch.
That's for 8, so that's a little bit less than 100, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Listen, it's worth it. Go with this guy in the beautiful bus that you've seen, the Zuk bus, and you're going to spend a nice time with Wojtek. He knows everything about the city.